Okay, today we're going to talk about the input tag. So when we talk about the input tag, we're also going to talk about the form tag. Already know what tag is. So the input tag defines an element where the user will be able to impute. So when you say computer is about garbage in and garbage out, input and output. So the input takes commands from the user to the computer for an instruction. So we have the form tag, which defines a HTML form for user input. So we have the form tag and we have the input tag. I don't know if we've done this before, but for the sake of this class, we're going to look at that. So how do we create the input tag and what is the use case of an input tag? If you want to create a sign-up page, you see where they ask you to put in your email, put in your password, put in your username. Those are what we call input, and all of them are being wrapped in a form tag. So if you want to log in, if you want to create an account, if you want to report something, if you want to send somebody a message, what you type on is called the input tag. So how do we create that in HTML? We first of all create our HTML. Boilerplate. First of all, create our HTML boilerplate. So say HTML. We've talked about this before, where we have the HTML header, body, and all of that. So we're going to first of all create our form tag. We know what tags are, so I'm going to say form, opening and closing of a form. So you see here is the opening tag for the form. Here is the closing tag for the form. So what is the next thing we're going to create? We're going to add the labels and we're going to add the input. So I'm going to say label. Right, the label takes a label. So the label is for the name. So the label takes an attribute. So what label is for? Say this label is for name. Right, so after the label, I'm going to create an input tag. I'm saying an input tag. So I'm going to give this input an ID, and I'm going to give it a class, and I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to give it a type. So these are what we call attributes. Attributes are other elements that makes up a particular tag. So other properties of a tag. Let me put it that way. Attributes are properties of a tag. So if you have an input, the input should have a name, should have an ID. So we'll talk about attributes on a different video, right? But for this class, just know that attributes are elements that makes up an attributes are properties rather that makes up an element. So what's going to be the name of our input? Let's give it a name because this input is supposed to take the username. So what is the type of this input? It's going to be a text. So the type controls the keyboard, the type of keyboard that will display for this element. So most times if you're inputting password, you see a different kind of email keyboard. If you're inputting an email, you see at keyboard. If you're inputting a number, you see just number keyboard. It is controlled by this type attribute. So but for this case, since a name is a text, you are accepting the text the text type, right? So and we are saying the same thing. Let's have a label for email. So I'm going to say a label for email, right? And I'm going to have another input. I'm going to have another input that will have a name. I'll have a name of email and have a type of email, right? So see, this type is a text and this other type is an email. So we'll do the same thing for, don't mind about, so you can take out this so you don't confuse us. When we start talking about attributes, we we'll talk about that. So we can do the same thing for password. Say label should be enter password. So the label should be for password, right? So we have an input called password. Let's give it a name of password and give it a type of password, right? So we have this we have this input, and we have this label, and we have this form. So if we save this and try to run this on our browser, so let me go back here to my documents where it is saved. So you go back to where it is saved. I saved it as input.html. So I'm going to open it, input.html, in my browser, and if you can see this, we've created this form. So if you click on this, you can type in your name. So this is your name. You can type in your email, and for this it is your password. If you look closely, you cannot see the values of this because the type here is password. The type here is password. That is why you cannot see the values of the input, right? That is why you cannot see the values of the input. So this is how to create a form input or form element, right? So let's make it clear. There is a particular element that helps us to break the line. It's called B arrow. So if you add B arrow here and add B arrow here, right? If you just save this and come to reload, you see that the lines are now broken, right? So we've successfully created a form element which has labels and input. So like I said the input defines an input field. The input defines an input field. It gives the user the opportunity to pass in an input to the computer, to the program, to the system. So it gives an opportunity for inputting any value to the program. Why the label defines a label for an input. Defines a label for an input. If you watch here, if you're putting this, if you see this label, you know that, okay, this input, I'm supposed to put in my name. So it defines a label for a particular input. It defines a label for a particular input. So we have another element we're going to look at. So we're going to look at the select. We're going to look at the select element. We're going to look at the select element. So the select element helps us to select from list. So most times when you want to register in a system, they'll tell you to select your gender. Some they'll tell you to select your language. Some they'll tell you to select your country. So you click on it, see list of countries, and you select. So let's see how we can build that with HTML. Right. So we're going to have a select element, not section. Select element. Select element usually has children. So when you select, you see the list of elements. So the list is called options. So we have the option. So let's say we want to select your country. Say select your city. Select your city, right? Select your city. So now we're going to have option 1 is going to be Romola. So I'm just going to duplicate this. Option 2 is going to be Woji. Option 3 is going to be Choba. Option 4 is going to be My3. Option 5 is going to be GRA Phase 2. Option 6 is going to be Peter Odili. So I've successfully created a select input. So if you watch closely, you will see that I added disabled to the first option. This is because I want the first option to serve as my label. I want the first option to serve as my label. I don't want them to be able to select the first option, because the first option is not among the city. It's just an instruction telling you to select your city. So if I save this and try to run this, first of all, let's go and break the line so we'll have it properly. So if I save this and try to run, if I reload this, you're going to see the option here. So the option is Romola. See, at the top here, you're telling you select your city, and I cannot select it because from here I said it is disabled, right? So if you go back, you can select Woji, you can select Chobak, you can select Romola, My3, you can select GRA Phase 2, Peter Odili. So this is how to create a select input, a select element. So you have, first of all, you have the select tag. Inside the select tag, you have your options, which is going to serve as the options for users to select. All right. So the last element we're going to create in this form tag is going to be our text area. It's going to be our text area. So text area allows you to, if you watch closely, you cannot, if you type here, you cannot go to the next line. I'm hitting my enter button, my return button, but I can't go to the next line. It just keep going. So text area gives you opportunity to break your line. So if you want to write a comment, you can write in paragraphs. Text area helps you to do that. So if we save this and we go back to reload, we're going to have, let's break the line, please. Let's break the line. If you go do this and we'll go back to reload, you see that you can now break the line, right? So this is what text area helps us to do. So text area takes some properties. It takes the row takes the name. Let's give it a name, should be comment. It takes the rows. How many rows should it be? So let's say let's give it a 4 row, and it takes columns. How many columns? Let's say 50 columns. And inside of it to say enter your message here. Enter your message here. So I will explain this. Let me reload. So if you see the rows, when we talk about rows is the vertical orientation, right? Okay, rows is the horizontal orientation, while the column is the vertical orientation. So how many rows? We're talking about 4 rows. How many columns? You're talking about 50 columns. So this serves as the text in it. If you want this to be a placeholder, it has a property, an attribute. I don't want us to go into attribute now. We'll talk about attribute later, but we have an attribute called placeholder. And if you do this, it becomes a placeholder. Say, enter your message here. You can enter your message. You can say, hello, this is my message for this system. Hello, this is my message for this system. Right? And the next thing we're going to talk about now is a button. Next thing we're going to talk about now is the button. So after we've created these things, users be able to put in their name, Henry, put in their email, henry@gmail.com, put in their password, 12345 put in their message, hello. So they should be able to click a button to either register or do something. So let's create another element called button. So let's create another element called button, right? So the button is going to have a type. Let's give it a type attribute. Let's give it a type of button. Let's give it a name. So what will be the name of the button? Submit. Let's give it a name of submit. So let's break this line. So it will go to the next line and we save. If we go back to reload, we're going to see a button that will say submit. All right, we're going to see a button. So let's let's go back to recap all we've done. So first of all, we created a form element, which is holding a label for name input, and here is the name input, a label for email input, and here is the email input, a label for password input, and here is the password input. And we also went ahead to create a select element that helps us to select between options. And what are our options? Our first option is going to be more like an instruction, a label, which says select your city. And the first city is Romola, second city is Roji, third city is Choba, fourth city is Maitre, fifth city is GRA Phase 2, and sixth city is Peter Odili. So this makes up our select options. And if we go ahead to we went ahead to create a text area. The text area serves as a comment box that will allow you to break the line, write in paragraphs, unlike the input. The input allows you to write just in one line. So we went ahead to do that, and then we created a button for submit. And all of this gave a result to this. So we've done this. You can put in your name, say Henry Amadi, your email, henry@gmail.com, the password 12345, you select your city, Choba, enter, say hello, I am happy to submit this form, and you click on send. So this is all for the input element. If you have any questions, you can drop in the comment section. I will respond to you. And if you have any clarity, drop where you're not clear. I will make a video to complement that. For now, all right, see you in the next video. Bye.